Good morning, everyone. This is going to be the first of a series of videos, possibly, about the kinds of skills we'll be practicing and developing in Module 4. I'm actually going to start, I'm going to do this a little bit out of order. The first lab you'll find in Module 3 is not a Linux installation lab, but we need to start by building 3 new VMs. One for Kali, one for Ubuntu Desktop, and one for Ubuntu Server. And so I'm going to demonstrate those because each of those installations is subtly different from what you've done before. Granted, they are all based on Debian. So they're all using the Anaconda installer. They're still all using Partman for drive partitioning in the background. So you'll see a lot of the same choices, a lot of the same nomenclatures. But the user experience is different. So I'm actually going to start with a little housekeeping on my host system. This is my VMware Workstation 14. Or maybe actually might actually be 15. Anywho, the first thing I need to do, because as you can see, I've got my VMs from the first half of the course. I've got this Debian server running with 4 gigs of RAM. I don't need that. My infrastructure server is running with 4.3 gigs of RAM. I definitely don't need that. My client is running 2. I've got my Windows 10 client, which will come up here in just a minute. 2 is good. I need to dial all these back because particularly if I'm going to simulate even a work group scale of network virtualized on a platform which, while this is a precision mobile workstation, it's got a little bit more horsepower than your standard line of business laptop, like say a Dell Latitude or a Dell Inspiron, which is really their customer, their consumer grade laptop, or even say a Lenovo ThinkPad, something like that. Running all of these with as much RAM as they might want, I've only got 16 gigs of RAM to play with, and the host needs a significant fraction of that. Let's see what the host is actually using right this minute. I did Control-Alt-Escape to go straight to my task manager. I can look at my performance, and I can see that this thing, without even starting even one of these VMs, all I've got up is this recording software, the task manager, a couple of system windows, VMware Workstation, and my browser on the other screen. I'm still using 3 gigs of RAM right this very second. So I don't need to run a whole bunch of VMs in a way that is going to resource starve the host. All of them will slow down that way. So I'm going to dial before I begin anything else, I'm going to dial some of this back. This should be fairly familiar by now. I'm going to go in and edit my settings, and actually, though this is the Win 10, I don't need to do that. But you know what? Win 10, if it's just being a client, it doesn't. I'm going to knock it down a bit too. Turn my numlock on. Where did it not go? Okay. Okay. Okay, there. So the guest minimum is 1 gig, and that's what I'm giving it, because all this Windows 10 client really is a test bed to prove that things like DNS and DHCP work. If it doesn't do anything more than that, if it's slow and sad, I don't care. Now, I said we're going to be running a number of VMs. By the end of this, you'll also be running one more, the Metasploitable framework, which is a virtualized Linux which is designed to be attacked. Let's see, so let's turn this down to 1024. I'm going to crank these down. All of the, actually, I'm going to give this one 2 gigs because it is my infrastructure. Um, recommended. Um, and I'm going to do the same thing here. And then we're going to go get the images for Ubuntu. Technically speaking, I already have them on a USB key that is plugged in back behind my other screen. But I want you to know where to go get it. Okay, so housekeeping is done. The next thing I need is drag a new Google tab over here. We can just literally go to ubuntu.org. .com/download. And we are going to get the latest LTS version of all of these. Let's see. So we're going to get, so you've got various versions of Ubuntu, cloud, IoT, server, desktop, all of it. Let's see. So the Ubuntu desktop, I want actually the LTS, alternative downloads. The network installer is good. Okay. Okay, so what I want is not the BitTorrent, but I want the LTS version of 18.044. 16.046 is a little old. The latest version, now if you do some of this with the latest and greatest Ubuntu, you probably won't mess anything up. These are mostly there for you to get the experience and to have another target for what you're going to be doing with what you could do with Kali. Let me see. Let me go to the download page. Okay, here, this is what I want. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to snap. What I'm going to actually, I'm not going to get these because I already have them. I don't want to spend time pulling down a file I already have. But go ahead and snag either the 1804 LTS or the 1910. So there's that. That's what you would. That's where you would go for this. The other place you can go is Kali.org. If my keyboard will work. Okay, and it's not responding. So Kali, not Kalski. Kali.org. Download, yeah. Kali.org download. Okay, downloads. So what you will want is the installer or the live version. Now, what you don't necessarily want the live version because Kali Live is meant to run live, not to be installed. A lot of your live Linuxes will allow you to try it, and then B, or one, try it, and two, install it once you're good and ready to do so. Some flavors of Kali Live don't do that. The other option you have, if you know, for example, that you are going to use Kali in a virtualized format, is actually to grab one of their VMware images. I actually have that running on, I believe, over here. I've got my personal laptops over on another desk. I have the Kali VirtualBox image installed inside my Fedora 31 box. So this is where you would go for Kali. I'm going to shut that down. No, so the first thing we need to do is start a VM. I'm going to switch to just using the screen. Okay, no, not that. Not that at all. Okay. No. Okay. So I'm going to create a new VM. This should be new virtual machine. It's going to just do the same thing you would usually do, and because this is familiar, I'm going to pause it right here and pick up again in just a second. Okay, so I have my three ISOs. I'm going to pause again and for just a second to move these to the hard drive. It's always best if you're going to run the VM off the local hard drive to move the ISOs there too. So let me do that, and then I'll find this stuff. I can go from here after that. Once I pick Debian, now the difference here is that when you're choosing your version, you can choose. Ubuntu has two options for you: Ubuntu or Ubuntu 64-bit. There's really not a Kali choice, so your best bet is to, as far as Kali is concerned, is to go to other Linux on the basis of the kernel version. And in this case, Kali is running, the latest Kali is running some form of, I believe, the Linux 5 kernel version 5. I will double check that before I make this decision, but Ubuntu 64. So I'm going to stop this right here because this really this is turning into another video. So thank you. I'll be right back.